It's time to assemble Gnumpkin. 2 legs, a beard, and a nose, and we'll be done. The legs are going to be sewn on first, and they're going to be sewn on these 2 little pearl ridges that we made down here and then marked, because with the indents and the tweed yarn, it can be a little hard to see. So we marked those also with the stitch markers. But if you want to change how your legs are, if you'd rather this was the front, or this was the front, or this was the front, you can just change that. If you have these visible, no one's really going to notice them, and it's fine. So if you want to change how your Gnumpkin looks, you just do that. I'm going to recommend that you use a needle that has this little tip that leans up like this. It makes it easier to scoop, especially down in some of these parts for Gnumpkin here. So the legs have a front and a back. There's the section with the increases, and those increase, that little bit between the increases points at the toe. So we want to make sure that the heel, and therefore also the back line where we had the change in stripes, so that there's a bit of a jog in the stripes, that's the back, and then that way we can make sure that those are leaning the way we want. So what we want is when we're sewing, we want those facing up, so that when we go down, then the toe is facing up. So I'm going to take off the first marker so that I can work and don't need to fight it the whole time. Little leg down, making sure that I've got my heel facing up and the back beginning of round there. Now this will mean that the yarn will be in the center of the leg. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to kind of go push it over here to the right side. Since I'm right-handed, it's going to be easier for me to work from right to left. So I'm going to scoop a little bit of the body right where that pearl line is. Don't have to completely cover it. This is just the bottom of the gnome. We're all fine. So make sure you get a little bit of the body and then go through both layers of the leg. Once we fold the tube, it becomes sort of 2 layers. Work your way across the bottom, scooping the body and then going through both layers of the leg. Scooping body, 2 layers of the leg. If this is going to be a toy, I recommend you do this attaching step very securely indeed. The odds that the toy will be carried by the legs are really high. So what I would also do in that case is I would push my needle through to the other side, and then I would do a similar thing on this side where I would scoop a little bit of the body. I came out in the middle, so I would actually come out on the side, but what I would do is I would scoop a little bit of the body and then a little bit of the leg, and I would just go across, and I would attach it on this side as well, so that it's got security from both sides. Once you've done that, or if you're not making it a toy, what you can do now is you can tie a knot. Just go through a little bit of the leg, going through twice to make a nice tidy loop, and then go through the loop twice. And as you tighten it, work it closer and tinier and tighter to the leg. And then you'll be able to make it disappear nice and small. Put your needle through either the body, like I'm doing, or you could insert it back down through the leg. It's your choice. And just pull tight and make it disappear. That end is dealt with. And then attach the second leg the same way, and we'll be back to do the beard next. Up next, the beard. So there are 2 sides to this. There's a side where the twisted rib is really tight and tidy, and then there's a side where it looks a little more open and traditional, and we want the twisted rib side to be our front. We're going to center this with the brim up. We're going to center this on the legs so that everything is centered here, and we're going to sew it along the top line of where we started the body, so that very first round right there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go under a stitch of the body and then through the corner. And we'll do that a couple times. I'd like to secure the corners sort of off and up nice and tidily this way. Body, corner. If this is a toy, do this a bunch of times because the side is going to get the most pressure and tension on it if someone lifts it by that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go we're going to go above the beard on the pearl bits and under the knit bits so that we are hiding our stitches. Because when we put the nose on, the brim is going to stay up a little bit. It'll come down, but it'll sort of do this little arc thing here, unless you want your nose much farther down, in which case you can do that and then get your beard flat. But if we have it this little arc, that means that the side of the beard is going to be visible. So make sure we're keeping things nice and tidy. We'll go under the knit stitches, and then we'll go above ground, as it were, on the purl columns. And that will just help keep things tidy. So come up on the right side of this purl column and go down on the left side of that same column. If this is going to be a decoration, you don't have to attach it as frequently as that. You could skip a column here and there. So in the corner of the beard, again, I'm going under the body and then through the corner a few times. Once I've done that, flip the beard up, and then we'll just travel along the back of the beard here, just kind of skimming the stitches a wee bit. And as we do that, we get to a place where it's a little easier to tie a knot and work ourselves in away from the edge there. So we just go through as ever, make a loop, go through the loop twice. See how I undid my loop? So I'm going to have to go through again. So that counts as one. That counts as two. Always go through the loop in the same direction. Make sure that even though it's twisting, that you're going through the same part in the same direction so that the knot can be as tidy and as small as possible. And then just make it, push it smaller and towards the surface of the beard there, and then you can just make that end disappear inside your gnome. Pop it through the stuffing. Gets to hide out in the stuffing for the rest of time. Last, but certainly not least on a gnome, we need to attach our nose. So as I said, I'm going to leave the brim of my hat sort of up like this. I think it makes him look like a really friendly farmer taking his vegetables to market sort of a look. I really think this is cute. But if you'd like yours to be a little more flat, you will need to put your nose a little lower on the beard, and it will be something you're going to have to pay a lot of attention to get it right. Just because this is not going to have the same proportions, because this does grow fairly horizontally from here to here, as opposed to most gnomes, which kind of are much more gradual shaping away from the beard and away from the brim. So just be aware that you're going to have to really think things through if you're going to move that down. Just make sure you really like it and that you play with how it's going to look. Maybe pin it and kind of look at it from a few angles and make sure that you've got it solid. So I'm going to take each end down on either side of this center column. So the first one's going to go to the left of the center column of stitches, and then this one will go to the right of that center column. And then once we've done that, we can tie a knot on the other side. It's really hard to see. Gnumpkin is not a gnome that plays nicely in terms of like being easy to keep him in one place and keep it good for the video. So we're going to tie a knot here. Tie one and then double check that I haven't made some hideous and weird mistake, but that's looking pretty good. And then I'll secure it with a second knot. All right, if you're doing toy, you probably want to keep both ends out so that you can really firmly attach your nose. But if you're doing a decoration, you can make the one end disappear. I'm going to do that by just going through my nose, pulling that through, and then we can do our standard pull taut snip and disappear. And then we're going to use the second end to have the nose attached, because right now it's only attached in the middle. So now we're going to attach it sort of at 1/3 of the way down and 1/3 of the way up. Do that, I'm going to come up here a little lower on my nose, and I'm going to scoop a little bit of the nose. And then I'm going to go through the beard. And then we'll do that again through the nose, through the beard. And you see I'm kind of making a little circle. And when I tighten that up, it should brace it nicely. This is quite a large nose, so depending on how in place you want this to be, like for instance, if it's a toy, you may also want to attach it on the side here and on the side here, because this is a fairly big nose and it will wobble on that center line. So if you brace it on the sides as well as in the middle, that will also be good for you. All right, so up we go to the section where we can attach the top third of our nose. Okay, so I often need to roll the nose back. So I'm going to hold the brim up and scoop through my nose and then through the very top of the beard here. And we'll just repeat that a couple times. Let's see what that looks like. If I tighten it now, let's see what it looks and feels like. But in terms of our look, I think that's pretty good. Looks like it's in the right place. The stitches are nicely oriented. I should have said at the beginning, I like it so that the nose stitches here, the stockinette is the same vertical direction as the body and the hat. If we do it this way, I find it much more obtrusive. Here, the focus seems to be on the whole shape, whereas when I do this, I feel like somehow the horizontality of it really throws off the rhythm for me. So I prefer this. So that's one thing I've made sure to orient. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down, tie a little knot, and then make that disappear. Gnomes really are a fun thing to experiment with, and I really encourage you to play around with placement and to explore. Placement really is personality, which means pin things beforehand, see if you like them, try things that aren't what I have described. What I describe is always about getting what the picture looks like, since that's the whole point of a pattern, but I really encourage modification and exploration. So here's Gnumpkin, ready for his autumnal adventures. I hope you've had a great time making him.